Prabhu Vaishnava Vrinda ki Namacharya Shila Haridas Thakur Jai Prem se ko Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta ki Jai Krishna Radha Krishna Gopinath Shama Kundara Kundira Govardhan Jai Rajabhumi Shri Vrindavan Dham ki Jai Shri Nilacha Jagannath Puri Dham Jai Jai Shri Navadvip Mayapur Dham ki Jai Ganga Mai Jamuna Mai ki Jai Bhakti Tulsi Maharani ki Jai Samaveta Bhakti Jai Yuga Dham Harinam Sankirtan Yagya ki Jai Transcendental Srila Prabhupada Book Distribution ki Jai Transcendental Srila Prabhupada Guru Puja ki Nidai Gaur all glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Oh glories to Shri Guru. Glories to Shri Prabhupada. Shri Prabhupada ki spiritual master, and the only way by which we can obtain your devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my dark eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic prema emanates. By him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is an ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, the Lord master of the devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of the lotus feet. May the rain be spread all over the three worlds. We take shelter of the lotus feet of Prabhupada.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanajari. Yamuna Tira Vanajari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Gaur Premanande Hari Grantaraj Shrimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So, I'd like to welcome everybody. Today we have again our scientific Saturday, meaning we have chosen a specific verse from Srimad Bhagavatam in order to discuss in relation to the scientific world of today. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskritya Narancheva Narottamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet Nastapreshu Abadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. So today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th Canto, Chapter 13, The Behavior of a Perfect Person, Text 43. Vikalpam Juyak Chito Tam Manasi Artha Vibhrame Mano Maikarike Utva Tham Mayayam Jyoti Anu Vikalpam Juyak Chitto Tham Manasyartam Viprame Manovaikarike Hutva Thammayayam Chu Hotyanu Vikalpam Juyak Chitto Tham Manasyartam Viprame Manovaikarike Hutva Thammayayam Juhotyanu Vikalpam Juyak Chitto Tham Manasyarta Viprame Manovaikarike Hutva Thammayayam Juhotyanu Vikalpam Tuyachchito Dhammanasyarta Viprame Manovaikarike Hutva Thammayayam Juhotyanu Vikalpam Juyak Dhammanasyarta Viprame Manovaikarike Hutva Thammayayam Juhotyanu. Madajis. Vikalpam Juyachito Dhammanasyarta Viprame Manovaikarike Hutva Thammayayam Juhotyanu. Vikalpam, discrimination between good and bad, one person and another, one nation and another, and all similar discrimination. Juhuyat, one should offer as oblations. Chitto, in the fire of consciousness. Tham, in that consciousness. Manasi, in the mind. Artha Viprame, the root of all acceptance and rejection. Manaha, and that mind. Vaikarike, in false ego, identification of oneself with matter. Hutva, offering as oblations. Tham, this false ego. Mayayam, in the total material energy. Juhoti, offers as oblations. Anu, following these principles. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. The mental concoction of discrimination between good and bad should be accepted as one unit and then invested in the mind, which should then be invested in the false ego The false ego should be invested in the total material energy. This is the process of fighting false discrimination. Please repeat after me. The mental concoction of discrimination between good and bad should be accepted as one unit and then invested in the mind, which should then be invested in the false ego. The false ego should be invested in the total material energy. This is the process of fighting false discrimination. Purport. This verse describes how a yogi can be free from material affection. Because of material attraction, a karmi cannot see himself. Jnanis can discriminate between matter and spirit, but the yogis, the best of whom are the bhakti yogis, want to return home, back to Godhead. The karmis are completely in illusion. The jnanis are neither in illusion nor in positive knowledge. But the yogis, especially the bhakti yogis, are completely on the spiritual platform, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 14:26. Mam jayo vyavicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatitaitam brahma bhuya yakalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, who does not fall down under any circumstance, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Thus a devotee's position is secure. A devotee is at once elevated to the spiritual platform. Others, such as Jnanis and Hatha yogis, can only gradually ascend to the spiritual platform of nullifying their material discrimination on the platform of psychology and nullifying the false ego by which one thinks, I am this body, a product of matter. One must merge the false ego in the total material energy and merge the total material energy into the supreme energetic. This is the process of becoming free from material attraction. Vikalpam juhuyak chito tam manasiyartam viprame mano vaikarike utva tam mayayam juhotyanu. The mental concoction of discrimination between good and bad should be accepted as one unit and then invested in the mind, which should then be invested in the false ego. The false ego should be invested in the total material energy. This is the process of fighting false discrimination. Om Jnanatimvarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So Hare Krishna. So today we have chosen this verse in order to delve into the matter of mind. What is the mind? So in this series of scientific Saturdays, we are discussing different topics and put them in relation to some modern understanding. So the Vedic understanding of the platform of the mind is different from what the so-called scientists teach. The Vedic knowledge, Vedic wisdom actually delineates a clear understanding of the material creation and whatever goes with it, and the spirit, soul, which comes to this material sphere. So, this verse is actually quite instructive in this sense, even for us devotees, to understand our mind. So, the Vedic understanding is that the living entity is purely spiritual, is not from this material world. So when the spirit soul desires to enjoy, meaning giving up his position as being the servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, immediately Maya catches him. And Prabhupada points out that he actually loses his intelligence. And losing the intelligence meaning being covered by ignorance and identifying with the material body, with the material senses, and with the material mind. Srimad Bhagavatam has actually very minutely described how the whole process works. We have the possibility to either serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead or to serve our senses. Actually means to either to understand our position as being infinitesimal, small part of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or to try out to be the Ishvara, ourself. But that is not possible in the kingdom of God. So that's why Krishna, out of his causeless mercy, arranged for the playground of these naughty children, which is called the material world. So it has been described as soon as that desire comes up, immediately the spiritual soul is covered, first with the most subtle layer, the false ego, which actually means, false ego means that we want to be the enjoyer, we want to be Ishvara, we want to compete with Krishna. Then the next covering is intelligence. Intelligence is actually the capacity which gives us the directions how to do. And the next layer is the mind, thinking, feeling, willing. That actually brings the living entity further away and lets it delve into the material sphere. And it has been said that first there is the thinking and the feeling and then the willing. So means the spirit soul wants to experience. And then gradually it delves into more gross coverings. As we know, first the most subtle of the gross coverings is ether, then air, then fire, water, and earth. And along with these coverings also come the sense objects, which are a combination or an emanation from the working senses and the different material elements. So we can see that from a very subtle state, it actually becomes more gross and more gross, till finally we reach the hard bottom of material existence. So, but as Prabhupada also points out, already from that very first step, when we want to give up our position as a servant and become the enjoyer, then ignorance takes over, intelligence is lost, and we're in the pool of material existence. So that thinking and feeling and willing of the material mind is on the mental platform. In comparison, if we consider now the so-called scientific approach, which we experience in university or other institutions, they deal with psychology, with the mind, but not having the basis where it stems from. It actually stays on the mental platform as mental speculation or concoction. That's why the question also arises where the mind has its source, or what consciousness is actually, where consciousness is stemming from. Whoever took part in the previous Scientific Saturday session, His Grace Akandari Prabhu gave a very nice example about the discrepancies of consciousness and how the scientists struggle to determine what consciousness actually is. He very nicely pointed out, using the example of qualia, where the missing link is actually. Finally, everything boils down to the point that we don't want to accept that life comes from life. This is actually, in one way, natural, because as soon as the living entity identifies with the material body, matter becomes the source of everything. And due to the identification with matter, the natural conclusion also is that everything finally evolved from matter. But that is diametrically opposed to the Vedic understanding, and is bluntly called ignorance. That's why Srila Prabhupada was very emphatic while preaching, to always make the point that life comes from life, even going to the extent or warning the devotees that today's scientific approach is actually demoniac, very materialistic. In one way it's understandable, because being put into the material existence, which is a reflection from the spiritual reality, which is a perverted reflection from the spiritual reality, naturally one tends to follow the perversion also in the conclusions which are put forward. So that is actually the nature of ignorance, meaning that to believe something to be something which it is not, and actually which is in reality exactly the opposite. So a devotee takes his knowledge from the Vedas, from the revealed scriptures, from Sadhu, Shastra and Guru. These are the authorities. And the reason also has been very specifically given why to do that. Because being conditioned, we actually are qualitated by 4 shortcomings. That means that we have imperfect senses, limited senses. We are illusioned. We tend to cheat. And what's the 4th one?
Commit mistakes.
We commit mistakes. So, an honest person actually, realizing this state, would acknowledge that he is not capable of coming to the proper conclusion. But unfortunately, the state of affairs nowadays is opposite, and human beings, especially scientists, try to come up with their own conclusions or with their own speculative concoctions. But no matter how intelligent and how qualified we are, unless and until we are freed from any material contamination, whatever we produce will be affected by mistakes. That's why also the acharyas warn that we shouldn't, or we rather positively, we just should take directions from liberated souls. So, the activity of the mind is thinking, feeling and willing, and Prabhupada at one point says that this psychology, this human psychology, gives rise to so many questions which need to be answered, and which also has been done by so many thoughtful men during different periods and different ages. But all of them are finally on the mental platform and are conditioned or limited, because they're not Jai Jagannath Baladev, Jai Sudarama, Jai Shri Nitai. They're not on the spiritual platform. There are different platforms of consciousness, as the Vedic knowledge describes, starting from the most grossest, the bodily platform, then the mental platform, the intellectual platform, and finally, above all, the spiritual platform. So according to one's consciousness, the purity or the knowledge is conditioned by the different levels. So, the mental platform which is discussed here describes the position of the mind. The position of the mind, Prabhupada says, is accepting and rejecting. Accepting and rejecting what will be beneficial for one's conviction to be good. And the functions of the mind is thinking, feeling, and willing. So unless we actually connect to the Absolute, our accepting and rejecting will be on the material plane as well as the thinking, feeling, and willing. So that's why the advice has been given here in Srimad Bhagavatam that the discrimination between good and bad should be accepted as one unit, meaning it doesn't really matter. And in the absolute viewpoint, there is no distinction between good and bad, because everything on the material plane is in the ultimate bad, meaning to the disadvantage of the living entity. Whether we are elevating or degrading ourselves, as long as we are traveling in the material sphere, in the material universe, everything is actually bad because it's temporary, and we are meeting with old age, birth, death, and disease. So Vedic knowledge is meant to elevate the living entity above that stage. And the process here is given. It is quite technically formulated, but in the purport, Prabhupada actually explains it, meaning that the discrimination between good and bad should be invested in the mind, because it's the function of the mind. And then the mind should be invested in the false ego. And finally, the false ego should be invested in the material energy and be given up. Prabhupada uses the term of nullifying. So investing means, actually nullifying means transcending. So the process which I have described in the beginning, how the living entity actually acquires the different covering, material covering, first the subtle covering of false ego intelligence and material mind, and then finally the gross coverings of material body consisting of the 5 gross material elements, the working senses, the knowledge acquiring senses, and the sense objects. So that process has to be reversed. And as Prabhupada points it out, the best way to do that, or the only way, is actually through yoga, through bhakti yoga. Many times, or especially in the scientific world, they put most effort on knowledge, gyan, but that won't be sufficient. It is the start or the basis. In order to engage in the proper process, we need knowledge. Prabhupada makes a very strong point that first one needs to have the proper knowledge in order to enter the right process. So one has actually to ask the proper questions. Many times he points out that we need to know who we are in order to acquire proper knowledge. Unless and until we know who we are, how we want to acquire any knowledge which has some substantial value to our existence. But as we can see, that is not really the requirement, or that is not the understanding of modern science. They delve into any kind of subject matter without actually knowing who they are. And due to that shortcoming, it won't be possible to achieve the proper knowledge. So that's why it is very important for us devotees to understand this fact properly. This was also one reason why Akandati Prabhu thought of it would be nice to have these kind of discussions amongst the devotees in order to prepare devotees when they meet these kind of personalities to have the proper arguments and the proper understanding how to discuss this subject matter and use the arguments, the proper arguments, in order to try to attract and convince modern scientists. Okay, I stop now. Are there any comments or questions? Everything clear? Yes.
Hare Krishna, thank you for the lecture. It would be interesting to hear what is exactly the application of this point of view that mind is accepting and rejecting. What does it mean practically? Because you also mentioned that the mind is thinking, willing, and feeling. Yes. So how these three things relate to these two things of rejecting and accepting? And further, just maybe continuation of the question would be, how does this all interact with the intelligence? Because this verse doesn't really mention the intelligence, and maybe you can elaborate more on how this all interacts all together.
Okay, so I go step by step. Acceptance and rejection, like we consider something good and something bad for our sense enjoyment. That is the position of the mind. That is what the mind is for. And the functions of the mind, that he does that through thinking, feeling, and willing. We try to think about good things. We tend to want to have good feelings, as well as we wish the best for us. If it's not like that, then we call it we're in a diseased state of mind. And the intelligence is the faculty how to do it. Prabhupada also said, like, it's the determination. How to achieve. That for that intelligence is needed. Or to phrase it differently, what do you want to go for? And how you wanna achieve it. Especially how you want to achieve it. That's why, like, as soon as the spiritual soul decides to turn away his attention from Krishna towards the material world, meaning that he wants to become his own Lord and Master, immediately the intelligence, the material intelligence, will take over. Because how you do that, And then comes, okay, I do this, I don't do that. Thinking, feeling, willing. Does it make any sense?
Yes, it does. The picture for me is not quite clear yet, but I think it's so big topic that it's difficult to discuss in this time frame. But it would be interesting to hear which part is exactly responsible for logic. Is it the intelligence or is it mind?
You mean the intellectual capacity?
Let's say, I mean, you mentioned that there is a kind of perception of good and bad, right? And one can sit for a few hours and try to logically figure out logically what one considers bad and what one considers good. And somehow that feels for me that this decision would come not from the mind, but from some other source. Now I'm kind of asking whether it's coming from intelligence then, if we use logic, or is it always from the mind when we try to consider something as bad or as good? This is my question.
No, then the finer thing is the intelligence. The intelligence gives the direction. You see, and here it's actually, it is easier, especially for devotees, to understand, because our approach, now what you just said, we're always coming from the wrong side. Actually the understanding is, finally Krishna gives the intelligence. Krishna allows us to do. When we as living entity want to enjoy, Krishna out of his causeless mercy allows us. He finally allows us, and he gives the intelligence, he gives the knowledge, the remembrance and the forgetfulness, Krishna says. So according to the desire of the living entity, Krishna provides. And now maybe to give a practical example, like the intelligence is the leading force, so to say. So that's why the Vedic knowledge or the Vedic instruction is that one should take guidance. And in that picture, which shows Krishna and Arjuna on the chariot, sometimes it's the different ingredients have been associated with the horses are the senses, the strain. Wie sagen wir der Zügel? Strain is English.
Reins.
The reins are the mind, and the intelligence is actually Krishna who gives the direction. What does it mean? You know, like we should take directions from Krishna, meaning we should take directions from the Vedic scriptures. We should take directions from persons who know what is what, because otherwise we're bound to be misled.
So this is what we should do, and we see there are other people who are taking the other way. I mean, philosophers tend to use logic to conclude things. So what organ, what kind of sense do they use? Where should we? What is the categorization of logic? Does it, belong more to the intelligence or more to the mind? I mean, what philosophers do?
They will use the same capacities, you know. That's why, going back, you know, their desire is to become a famous thinker, a Muni. You know, what is the definition of a Muni? Thinker, philosopher. The definition is that he has to establish himself. If he doesn't establish his own line of thoughts, he won't be accepted amongst the Munis. So that is his desire, and Krishna will provide him with the intelligence, with the intellect to do that. But the ultimate goal is not to become a famous Muni. The ultimate goal is to go home, back to Godhead. So we have to understand, finally, it is Krishna who gives this. Because I believe your question points on that, you know, to understand what is what in order to optimize. Is it the process? I mean, that is how knowledge functions, you know. You try to find out what is what and what is the relation between the different elements in order to optimize and to be efficient. But as long as that is on the material plane, it doesn't really matter. Unfortunately, nowadays, you know, this is considered to be the standard, you know. The more so-called intelligent you are, you know, the higher a ranking you get. But that is not the standard of Vedic culture, because finally the standard of advancement, meaning, or your position, is how much detached you are. Nowadays we see, you know, there are two standards. One is the scientific rank you hold, and the other one is how much money you have. These are basically the two great standards which are used in nowadays world. There's no question whether your character is spotless, whether your ethics, your moral standards are high. That doesn't matter. you understand which point I want to make?
Yes, I feel kind of the question is unnecessary, maybe.
No, not at all. You see, what Krishna says is the best jnani. In Bhagavad Gita, what is the perfection of jnana? Siddha, Siddhi, Vasudeva Sarvamiti, one who recognizes that everything is Vasudeva. Meaning that whatever you see, there is nothing wrong. That is maybe an important point, like it's not that devotees say that there's no use in studying. You see, you may think, there's no use in studying. No. Prabhupada used the point, there will always be persons, who are inclined, who also are gifted by Krishna to be thoughtful, and who have the inclination, to delve very deep into different subject matters, So yes, do it. But come to the conclusion that Krishna is the source of everything. That is the perfection.
I see little danger for myself in this point of view that Krishna is the source of the everything, because one can misinterpret this and maybe give up a lot of responsibility. Maybe. I mean, it depends actually on the right. On how much responsibility we do have initially in the beginning, because if Krishna is the controller of everything, if he is the origin of everything, then our spectrum of activity, what we can do, of our possibilities, is very, very small. I mean, it is infinitesimally small in comparison to everything. But somehow you've been also talking about optimizing things, that one can try to use this information to perform better with intelligence in mind. But on the other hand, you say that it comes from Krishna, so somehow it gives a feeling that we cannot do anything about that. We have just to observe and accept, and then it's kind of even impossible to act in this material world. Then we're just observers, right? If we just accept, like Krishna controls everything, if we just take it literally, like everything, then we cannot do anything.
You see, that's the thing, that's the misconception. The first point you said, yes, our independence is very minute, but there is the independence. And in that independence actually lies the joy, the living entity has the free will to decide what he wants. And Krishna is so merciful that he supplies.
And may I ask where we see our free will? I mean, where can we perceive it? Where is the influence of this free will?
One point, it's the free will is that you're here. Our material existence, Krishna didn't do, you did, I did. You see, that's the whole thing. You understand? That is the misconception. Krishna said, no, don't leave me. You will just you will end up in misery. And he tells it time and time again. But we are so proud and so arrogant. We say, no, I want to do it like that. Then finally Krishna says, yeah, okay, do what I want you. And still, time and time again, he will tell us.
Yeah, that's interesting, because we hear from the scriptures that only a small fraction of the souls are present in the material world, and the most of the souls are present in the spiritual world, are not conditioned, right? So there must be some internal property of the soul which dictated to be conditioned. So somehow we also come to the point that it's the nature of our souls to be conditioned for some time, and maybe it's intrinsic, maybe we cannot do anything about this. So somehow even there it's a kind of Krishna's arrangement. So
you see, that is always that is the wrong thinking. You know, maybe I can explain it also different. You said, actually, how you put it down is it that actually, you know, like whatever we do, finally, we don't really do anything. Everything is arranged for us. You know, but maybe think on the other way. You see, like you want to achieve something.
But our wishes also come from somewhere, right?
Huh?
Our wishes, things what we wish, also come from some different sources, right? Not from us, right? Not from the soul, I guess.
No, from the soul. That's the thing. You know, like we have to understand, this desire is a function of a soul. And in the absolute, or the most intricate desire is that we want to be happy, we want to be eternal, and we want to be full of knowledge. That is why you go and study, why you want to study, in order to acquire knowledge, is it? And you want to do that in order to be happy. And now you say, that is your impendence. You can't do that. But we shouldn't blame now Krishna for whatever state we are in, because it's our own doing that we are in that state, you know. You know, that's the thing. We have to desire properly. And we have to act, especially act properly, and then we will actually gain, first of all, bliss, secondly, eternity, and knowledge. Everything will be there. Actually, the soul is full of knowledge, bliss, and eternal. But now we are not. Why? Because we're covered. Why we're covered? Because we did the wrong thing. So now the intelligent thing would be to find out what is the right thing to do. No?
And it's very difficult to use one term, one word, like desire something, for two separate things, I guess, because once you mention these three properties of the soul, which are actually the defining properties, which always present, even in the material condition, and of course we desire to experience this present but covered properties, but this desire is very intrinsic. It is the desire which coming from the soul, but in our everyday life we actually don't experience this basic, fundamental, intrinsic desires. Rather we experience something like, oh, it would be nice to eat ice cream now, or I don't know, watch a movie, or maybe now chant some rounds, not in the morning but in the evening. These are desires which we're confronted with in our everyday life, but these are obviously not coming from from the soul, right?
From where it comes then?
Yeah, I guess from the mind.
Yes.
But the point is, how can we use our free will if our desires are seemingly determined by the mind, and the mind is determined by Krishna? So where can we actually make this desire?
No, our mind is determined by the material contamination presently.
But this is controlled in the end. It's all in Krishna's hands, because it's still material part does not belong to us. I mean, it does not belong to soul. The mind is not the soul's under the control of the soul.
Yeah, because you want it.
But what I want is it's some kind of circle. What I want is determined by the mind, and mind is what realizes or what brings me to.
Yeah, but that's that's the meaning of conditioned. Our desires, we're in the conditioned state, meaning we're in ignorance. Somebody who is ignorant, he doesn't know what he wants, and he doesn't know how to get it. You see, like, yes, the spirit soul is eternal, full of knowledge and bliss. But as you correctly noticed, we are not in that state. So why we are not in that state? Because we have a gross body and we have a subtle body. And now the question comes, why do we have it, We have it because we wanted it. And how we get rid of it? In order to purify our desires.
I'm just wondering, how can we purify our desires if it's not under our control? Because
it is under our control.
But
that's the whole thing, the mind is thinking, feeling and willing, accepting and rejecting.
Yes.
But above the mind is intelligence.
Yes.
And if we use material intelligence, we will go astray and we will wander in this material universe for eternity. So what the Vedic scripture says, what Krishna says, Tad vijnanartam sagurum avigachyat. You take guidance from somebody who is not in that. Because, even the Vedic scriptures has to be explained in order to understand properly. That only can explain you somebody who knows. That's why Vedic scripture says, you go, you find out such a person, and then you surrender. And you do what he tells you.
But even that, to do that, it takes desire, right? One has to do this, decide to do this, and in order to make the decision, one must first to have the desire for that. But where will this desire come from? From our mind.
From suffering.
So,
or in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says there are 4 kind of people who come, who even start to think. That is the one who is suffering, the one who is in need of money, the one who is inquisitive, and the one who is looking for knowledge. I mean, my question to you would be, why you're coming here and listening? What is your intention?
I don't know. And this,
you don't know?
This is...
You're a scientist, is it?
Well, depends on what you see as scientist, but I mean, I don't really know the reason why I come here. I'm also thinking a lot about the reason. Not the reason.
Okay, like, then Prabhupada also said, doesn't matter whether you understand or you don't understand. You just follow the process. And as you go on, you will understand. And seemingly, actually, what brought you here is the desire of the spirit soul. Nobody comes to the temple just out of fate, out of accident. That's the other thing, we have to understand nothing in this world happens simply out of accident. There is always a cause and a reaction.
And this four reasons for coming to Krishna or trying to develop Krishna consciousness are also kind of initiators, but in the end it takes also the mind. The mind has to reject one of these four conditions. For example, the mind rejects suffering, and the intelligence kicks in and says, okay, now you have to study Vedic knowledge, follow the authority, and so on and so on. So I also don't see where we have our control there. Somehow it's always we are coming to the same point, that it's not under our control. I mean, somehow I cannot really see how our soul's desire interacts with our material existence. I just see there is like missing link.
Then I would advise you, don't matter. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Don't torture yourself. Just come, listen, take prasad.
Okay.
And when the time is right, okay, Krishna will reveal.
Yes, we were also at this point that I said maybe this question is not necessary, so...
No, these are good questions, you know, but you see, one thing is also, we have to be humble and we have to admit that we don't know everything. And then there's nothing wrong with that. And you also have to understand that in our process, you know, first the surrender comes, then the knowledge comes. Tesham satada yuktanam bhajadam pridibhurvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mamubhakti. First we surrender, then Krishna gives us the intelligence how to come. So the more we surrender, the more the intelligence will develop. You see, this is something which the material mind doesn't understand, because it's diametrically opposed. You see, we have to give up the tendency to be the controller. That is our disease. And now you want to control. Isn't it? Actually, you know, like knowledge is a tool to control.
Thank you.
Huh?
Thank you for your input.
Hare Krishna. I hope it helps. I mean, this is not a criticism. Please don't misunderstand me. And it's good to ask this question, you know. It's good to be critical, because we are not sheeps, you know. It's good to be critical, and whenever you have a question, you ask. But then at the same time, you know, also we should, if we come to the right source, you know, we should be humble enough to surrender, because finally that's what is wanted, to surrender. We are here because we thought that we knew everything and we want to be the Ishvara. Hare Krishna. Any comments? Savyasachi Prabhu.
This is wonderful. It was wonderful to hear the exchange and just to kind of observe that dialogue. And yeah, this point of free will. You know, I was considering that we do choose things. I was just thinking, even like the questions we ask, the clothes we wear, what food to eat, not to eat. Yeah, but because it's limited, as you pointed out,
then there's that tendency to then criticize Krishna, that you have all the control. And so now, even where I do have some control, I want to blame it on you, because it's not giving me what I want, my free will. As you pointed out, because we're conditioned, so we don't exactly know what we really want as souls. And by hearing, we start to understand what is actually good for us, and by hearing from the proper source, then slowly we can align our desire with that ultimate good revealed by the ultimate person whom some faith has developed in. And so it's nice. I was just thinking that you come here to those who have a better faith in Krishna, who are maybe taking guidance from a spiritual master, to kind of question them, interact with them, and it slowly allows you to see actually how these layers, as Prabhu was pointing out, of conditioning, of false ego, of intelligence, of mind, are skewing or obstructing you to perceive your ultimate desires, and now you're just experiencing the ones that are influenced by the conditioning, and so you feel, I'm not in control. It's true. Ultimately, we're desiring based on our conditioning now, but it improves until you feel that it's your choice to align with Krishna, and you're happy to do that, and you find it's natural. Yeah, but yeah, there's the thing of the hand, that's pointing at someone else. They say there's 3 more fingers pointing at us. So, and just your patience is so exemplary. I thought that was so nice to patiently listen and also respond, and your bravery to ask the questions that you want to ask is it's almost like an example to show the world. Sometimes when there's discussion, there's then fighting and then anger. But here, it was nice, back and forth, So thank you to the two of you.
Actually, it's a good sign, to be frustrated, as long as you realize that you're frustrated. But one thing I can tell you, that's what also the Vedic scripture said. There will be, like, once we reach that stage, then there will be excitement, there will be free will, there will be happiness, there will be knowledge, there will be eternity. And there won't be that feeling that, oh, I'm just dictated. Everything is actually put on me. But in one way it's very good when you realize that. Because most people don't realize. Most people think, no, I'm the chief of whatever I survey. And if I just do it a little better, then I will get even more. Because the fact is, actually in this material realm, what you experience is actually correct. Because what happens to us, even on subtle plane, is karma. This body is karma. Our mental arrangement is karma. Meaning it's the result of our previous activities. Okay, anything else? Thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande. Yeah.
You're so much in the
Spiritual
circle of
soul,
those who
spiritual
Yeah.
soul,
that you don't get to
ego,
hear
intelligence,
Perfect
and mind.
definition.
Yes, yes, which help us to actually consider.
Not
what
only
is this?
material condition.
That's really nice.
False ego,
False ego,
intelligence.
you speak about false ego, intelligence, and mind in our condition. But has the spiritual soul the same ego, mind, and
No, like the proper ego is the soul.
mind and intelligence? The same.
Non-mind and intelligence will be soul. Because intelligence will be only interested in to satisfy the desires. And the acceptance and the rejecting, the thinking, feeling and willing will be only focused on Krishna. So the material mind will be dissolved.
Yes, but spiritual mind exists. Spiritual mind and spiritual intelligence exist in spiritual world.
Yeah, thinking, feeling, willing, desire, this is there. And also acceptance and rejection. You will accept everything which is favorable for serving, and you will reject anything. Anyway, in the spiritual world you don't have to reject anything, because everything is. In the spiritual world everyone wants to serve. Even the pillar wants to serve Krishna, you know. So there, this is the natural state.
And sometimes we hear that to get to spiritual world, we need to solve our subtle body. Yes,
Dissolve, yeah.
dissolve. But if you have spiritual mind and ego and intelligence.
You see, you can also see the false ego and the intelligence, the material intelligence and the material mind are contamination. It's like dirt on a mirror.
So we
You see, if that dirt is away, then it's good.
maybe not solve but purify subtle. Not solve subtle body but purify.
Purify.
Purify this mind.
Like the gross body we give up,
Yes.
but the subtle body is performed
Yes.
till it dissolves. You know, like when the thinking, feeling and willing is only focused on Krishna, there is no more material mind.
Subtle body is
Covering is gone.
covering is gone, but subtle body remains, but in pure station. Okay. And maybe one more question.
Yes.
You said that the function of intelligence is how to approach. Yes. But I think that intelligence must control mind.
Yes.
But how it can control if he has only function approach to approach? You said that intelligence is for approach. How to approach this or that intelligence, function of intelligence?
No, not this or that. That means accepting and rejecting. That's the mind.
It's mind, but
The
how?
determination where to go. Like Prabhupada also translates intelligence as determination. You know, should I go north or west?
And how intelligence control mind?
No, the intelligence controls the mind. The intelligence is above the mind. Because according to where you determine yourself to go, the mind will function.
If mind want to do this, and intelligence says that it's wrong.
Yeah, that's why, you know, like Prabhupada says, to control the mind with intelligence, higher intelligence. You see? So, because the intelligence says, don't do this, be Krishna consciousness, you will tell the mind, don't go that.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. I just wanted to say, would you like to keep it with you?
Yeah, whatever.
And if you have 2 minutes,
Yeah, sure.
one more question. So I'm just in the very beginning.
Yes. We are all beginners.
And the question is again regarding the mind and the intelligence. So, as far as I understand, the mind itself is a great gift. It's already a gift to be in a human body. It's a great gift to have a mind, and at the same time it's a big difficulty because mind is creating false ego. And intelligence is a great instrument, sometimes. Sometimes it's a great instrument, or it can be a big destroyer for a human being. And the bigger is intelligence, the bigger it can be a destroyer, because it's creating big traps for the mind. And with the help of japa meditation, with the help of bhakti yoga, this is an instrument which intelligence can choose to get out of this trap, because when we concentrate on repeating the same names, we forget who we are, we focus on the names, and we focus on repeating, and we start to forget who I am, where am I, what I do, and the internal dialogue disappear after a certain time. Because first I focus, I start to repeat, and then after a certain time the dialogue disappear, and then disappear the understanding what I do, where am I, and everything disappear except the names.
Good. That's a process. Actually, by chanting the names, we purify. We purify the intelligence, we purify the mind. And you say it disappears, means, the unwanted things disappear.
Yeah. It's a funny trick.
Yeah, but it's very nice, if you experience it, because that means you do it properly.
Till the moment I start to feel pain of uncomfortable sitting. Only till this moment, because when the pain starts very strong, let's say if I sit in some posture and I feel that the pain in the joint, my mind comes back. And then what I realize, I'm here. And then I realize that the play has to go on, the show must go on.
Yeah.
And the only thing I can do is to choose the direction. So I don't choose, I was already born, I'm alive, but I can choose what to do.
Yeah. That's the thing.
Again, funny thing.
That is the free will.
That is the free will.
And that's the exceptional thing, or the most precious thing of the human form of life. Humans they have the free will, animal not. Animal follows instinct, That is, we can decide, animal doesn't go to church. Animal doesn't question, who am I, where I come from, where I have to go. But humans can. And if humans do that, then they will.
But I was thinking that animals sometimes are more pure than human beings, because animal doesn't know what is good and what is bad. Animal is just an animal. But if a human being knows what is good and what is bad, and he is doing bad, then he is worse than animal.
Yeah, if he doesn't behave, look at it. In that way it's correct. An animal hasn't got the free will. An animal is just acting on its bodily instinct, which difference. Like a tiger goes and hunts, eats flesh, and a pig eats stool and things like that. But the human being has the possibility. So if he doesn't use the possibility, but just caters the 4 demands of the body, eating, sleeping, making, and defending, and acts detrimental, then it's less than an animal. That's what we're has more a human being has more responsibility because he has more capacity.
And thank you very much for mentioning one thing which made me clear. It doesn't matter why I'm here. It doesn't matter why he was here. Why I many times I ask myself why I come here.
You come here because Krishna sent you.
I have no idea what you're talking about, and still I don't know why I'm here. Honestly,
doesn't matter. You're happy when you're here?
Yes.
Yeah, very good.
Thank you very much, sir.
Hare Krishna. That's enough to know. Hare Krishna.
things already. Look, Prabhu is smiling. Wow, he's very happy here. No, Prabhu is really happy. Okay, no, he's not smiling. He saw me and he's like, oh. But it's so black. With blue. They're also like black. There is a blue. With black silver. And they're also like that. It was beautiful. I got some more cheese. I thought you were eating more. Some left? Oh. Chip. Oh my god. You tried to say cheeks? Yes, cheeks are. Yes, you see? Are more fat than. Yes. What? Left? Thanks. Wow, no then. No, his cheeks are fatter than his. No, yes. His are like this and he's like, and we don't, he's like really skinny. No. Yes, we don't need. Oh, come on. What do you say? You can't talk like that. I hope so. Why not? And yeah, you know, Krishna lets me know if you have a relationship with him, and you can choose if it can be a friend or a brother or some. Wow. They're so beautiful. Actually, I want to take forward with it's so good. This is good. I'm sad. I'm sad. But then you're not coming. I need to bring. Oh, look. Here she is. Yeah, that's it. Oh. Where do you need to bring her? She's not staying here? No. And who is staying here? No one. No one's. I thought the one is staying. No, after lecture I need to take everyone. And bring in the evening and bring them. And bring Ken eating. Ken. You're just walking. No, I can't. Oh, you're not because. So they need to clean the floor first or what? And then they can drink. Yeah, at least. Oh my god, you're not going. If you're not going to Haina, you're going to tell. Okay. But I want to go. You said okay. I don't care. Everything will be great. Just relax, I want to go to Haina. What are you doing anymore? Yeah, then go. You also. I'll stay. No. No, come on. Let's go and we take the prashad and